We have a new Percy Jackson trailer, and it has given us more content than any other trailer or teaser so far, so let's break it all down. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button to help the channel with its algorithm, and if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. I'll be covering the show very heavily both before it comes out and as it's coming out, so hitting that subscribe button and also the bell will help you see all of that content. Now, let's break this trailer down. I was scared of dentists in the dark. The trailer starts off playing a cover of the song Riptide, which has meaning behind it because that's of course the name of Percy's sword Riptide, which I thought was a great touch. We have a shot of New York where we start off with Percy and where much of the series takes place, and it's obviously very modern with today's skyline despite the fact that the story was written back in 2005, so that's something interesting to note, it's in modern day. The next shot shows the Med, or the Metropolitan Art Museum, which is the location where the first book started. Percy was on a field trip there with the school Yancey Academy. You can also see the yellow school bus right here, which is where Percy said everything really started to go bad at the very beginning of the first book. If you look closely, you can see Chiron, or Mr. Brunner as he's known here, in his wheelchair that hides the horse half of himself. And there's also Mrs. Dodds next to him, and Percy and Grover walking up the steps, and one of these girls must be Nancy Bobofit, the bully of Yancey Academy. The next shot shows Percy's face, and seeing a younger Percy makes me so happy, even if he does have blonde hair and blue eyes instead of black hair and green eyes. I just feel like Walker Scobell embodies this role so well. We see that he's looking up at a statue, which actually depicts Perseus, who Percy is of course named after, and he's holding up the head of Medusa, perfectly foreshadowing what will happen later in the show. This was not in the book, by the way, so this was a concept made for the series, and it's genius in my opinion. We then see the assignment Mr. Brunner made, which if you remember is one of the few classes that Percy really enjoyed. Interestingly though, it says that it's a history course, but in the book it was a Latin class. We see Percy's dyslexia in action as he can't read the words on the assignment, and as someone who is pretty badly dyslexic, this is pretty accurate to how it feels and looks, so good on them for making this realistic. We then see a shot of Nancy Bobofit whacking Grover in the head, Percy being outraged, and Grover stopping him from going after Nancy. This of course hints to the fact that Percy always protected Grover, which we were told about in the book. Also, if you pause it here, we have a better shot of Nancy as she smirks at Percy. Looking around, it appears as though Yancey has a loose rule for school uniforms. You have to wear a blue shirt with a collar. Also, going over Percy's voiceover.
My name is Percy Jackson. Am I a troubled kid? Yeah, you could say that.
That first part is taken right from the page.
Bad grades, bullies.
The rest highlights his dyslexia and ADHD hindering him, leading to bad grades, and of course the mention of bullies, a common theme throughout all of the Percy Jackson books. He then mentions that there's stuff not so normal.
And then there's some stuff that's maybe not so normal.
And this then leads to a shot of Riptide and then Mrs. Dodds. This is probably right after Percy had the pen thrown to him by Mr. Brunner, aka Chiron, and the way it vibrates is such a nice touch. Mrs. Dodds looks amazing in her Fury form, by the way. They did a great job with the CGI here, which I was a little worried about seeing as Disney has stretched themselves out so thin with CGI artists between Marvel, Star Wars, and every other project they're doing, so this makes me really happy to see. Also, it looks like Percy's fight with Mrs. Dodds takes place outside in front of everyone, whereas in the book, it happened inside with no one else around, and being so isolated in the novel helped play into the fact that Percy started to think he imagined this encounter. It will be interesting to see how this plays out in the show, especially because Sally Jackson, Percy's mother, says that no one else could see this.
You saw something that no one else could see.
So there's a lot of explaining they'll have to do with how the mist covers this up for all of the mortals around. Going back to Sally Jackson, I love this casting. She looks exactly how I imagined her in the books. It looks like the talk they're having here is at the cabin in Montauk where they went on the trip together. The Disney Plus logo has lightning around it, hinting at Zeus's bolt that takes center stage in the plot of the first book, Percy of course going on a quest to retrieve it. We see Percy in the bathroom throwing water on his face, meaning he might be trying to shake off some crazy thoughts, or maybe he's trying to work up the courage to tell his mom about all of the crazy things that have been happening. We know that this bathroom scene is also in Montauk because he's wearing the same sweater. We get a shot of Zeus, played by Lance Reddick, who unfortunately passed away after filming the series, which is such a shame. My heart goes out to his loved ones. But he looks incredible here, even wearing the blue pinstripe suit taken right from the novel, which is so incredible to see. This looks to be an Olympus, probably at the end of the events of the first book, as Percy speaks with Zeus and his father Poseidon. This right here is Zeus's throne, and there are probably 12 other thrones on either side of it for the other 12 Olympian gods. Zeus's throne is pretty different from the book, which was described as solid platinum, but this throne in the show is certainly much more epic. We see a shot of campers running across a rope bridge, which we saw a quick shot of in the last teaser. This rope bridge was not in the books to my knowledge, so this is a cool expansion of Camp Half-Blood. You can see their orange Camp Half-Blood shirts under their armor, and this is probably during Capture the Flag. They have the blue plume on their helmets, which means they're on Annabeth and Percy's side, led by the Athena cabin, while Clarice and her team had red plumes. We also hear Sally Jackson's voiceover as she tells Percy that all of the stories she told him about gods and half-bloods are real.
The stories that I have told you about great gods and half-bloods, they are real.
Which was not a thing in the book. She didn't talk about any of that to Percy, but rather kept it sort of hidden, so that's an interesting change from book to show. After that, we get the sequence of Grover coming to Montauk. We also see Percy's reaction to Grover's legs.
Grover, why does there have a goat in your pants?
And I'm a little disappointed he didn't refer to it as donkey legs the first time he saw it like he did in the book, because that was one of my favorite lines from the first novel. The next shot shows Percy on the porch of the big house at Camp Half-Blood, probably when he first arrived and right after he woke up. We then get a quick shot of the cabins as well as a sign that points to each one. We have Ares pointing to Clarice's cabin, the Demeter cabin, can't tell what this one is from this angle, the Hephaestus cabin, the Poseidon cabin aka Percy's, which is a blue sign for the god of the sea, and Athena, which of course leads to Annabeth's cabin. You can also see the Ares cabin back here, and this blue one is Poseidon's, matching the color of the sign and also the sea. We then see Chiron leading Percy into what I assume is the Hermes cabin, especially when looking at this shot because it's full to the brim. The Hermes cabin is the largest by far because they also take all of those half-bloods who have not been claimed yet. After that, we see a shot of Clarice leading her side for Capture the Flag, and as you can see, they have the red plume on their helmet just as the book said, and also meaning that they're going against the campers in this shot with the blue plume. A lot of these campers behind Clarice are probably sons and daughters of Ares. The next shot shows Clarice and a few of the Ares kids going after Percy. Annabeth had used Percy as a distraction to win, leading to this encounter, and this is where Percy shows off his true skills when he enters the water, thus getting help from his father. I have to say that the action here looks amazing. I love the choreography, and I'm excited to see this whole sequence all together. You can also see that Percy has a blue line on his armor, showing that he's with Annabeth's side, who has the blue plume. We get a shot of Grover showing off those pointy ears that's very book accurate. We also see Annabeth, and you can see how many beads she has on her necklace. She of course had the most out of anyone besides Luke, as she had been a year-rounder since she was just 7 years old. So 4 beads plus the college ring that belonged to her father, which she always wore on her necklace with the beads. Man, that is such a good detail. Also, each bead has a different image on it depicting whatever defined that year. One of those beads has a pine tree on it for Thalia, who of course turned into a tree when she sacrificed herself, and that bead was for Annabeth's first year. We see a shot of Percy in the rain, which I believe is when he's faced with the Minotaur. We then get a shot of the underworld and Hades greeting them. The underworld looks amazing, and if you remember from the book, it was the flipped over version of Olympus. Because Hades was banned from Olympus, he made his own upside down version in the underworld. After that, we see a shot of Medusa's garden of statues at Annie M's Gnome Emporium, all depicting people that she had turned to stone with her eyes. We get a shot of the trio entering the Lotus Casino in Las Vegas, where they of course got sucked in and wasted 5 days of precious time for their quest. We see Ares on the motorcycle in this shot, which makes me so happy because he was of course completely cut out from the movie adaptation. And in this shot, he even has his sunglasses and the leather coat, just like in the book. I'm curious if we'll ever see his fire eyes, which flame up behind his sunglasses when he gets angry. That would be so cool to see on screen. We see Ares drive off, leaving the trio, probably right after he told them to retrieve his shield from Waterland. This didn't happen on the street in the book, but rather in a diner, so that's a little bit different, assuming I'm right about what the scene is. We also get a shot of Percy and Annabeth kneeling at the feet of a statue, which I think is part of the ride that they take in Waterland when retrieving Ares' shield, which I believe is being held in the statue's hands right here. There's also a shot of a jump scare for Annabeth, and this is probably sometime on their way to the underworld. Either that or it's statues from Medusa's Emporium, but it doesn't really look like that, so I'm going with my first guess that this is in the underworld. We see a shot of Annabeth hugging Percy at Camp Half-Blood, and this is probably at the end of book/season 1 as they were both being honored for their good work on their quest. I have to say, it's so nice to see our first look at Percy in the show, everybody's favorite couple. We also hear Chiron say that the Master Bolt has been stolen and their quest is to retrieve it.
The Master Bolt has been stolen. That is your quest.
We see Percy and Annabeth going to Waterland, which as I mentioned is where Ares told them to retrieve his shield, and we see them on the ride together, which was of course all a trap set up by Hephaestus, hoping to get back at Ares and Aphrodite who cheated on him. We see them jump off that little boat in the ride, which might be them trying to avoid being aired on Olympus TV the way it was in the book. We also get a shot of Echidna, the mother of monsters, who's sending her chimera after Percy in the St. Louis Arch. That's also where Percy falls from, I believe, and he survives the landing because he ends up in the water as we see in this next shot. Right after this in the book, he also got a message from his father spoken to him by a woman's voice, telling him to go to Santa Monica Beach, which is where he fights Ares, which was shown a bit in the previous trailer. After that, we see a shot of Gabe's 78 Camaro, at least that's what it was in the book. And we also see the Minotaur coming after the car while Sally, Percy, and Grover are trying to get to Camp Half-Blood. This is followed by Sally telling Percy to be brave.
You're gonna need to be brave now.
And then the Minotaur getting her. There's some gold around her, which indicates that this is right before she disappears. We then get an awesome shot of Percy uncapping the pen, revealing Riptide. It's noteworthy that it's a capped pen and not a click pen like it was in the movie adaptation. That was actually one of the few good things the movies did in my opinion. I thought it worked better having it be a click pen, but it's also nice seeing the show follow the book so closely, so I'm happy either way. Also, something noteworthy, at this point in the novel, Percy did not have Riptide. Chiron took it from him after his encounter with Mrs. Dodds and then didn't give it back to him again until right before his quest. So that's a pretty big change and I'm interested to see how they do that. Adding to that, because Percy has Riptide here, that might mean that the sword he's using while fighting Clarice is also Riptide. The trailer ends with Percy running at the Minotaur with his sword, which is really cool. In the book though, he didn't have a sword here, he just took the monster down with his bare hands, which was a pretty crazy feat that they're taking away from him by giving him his sword in the scene. We then see the Percy Jackson and the Olympians logo, and they play Riptide one more time after we just saw Percy charging ahead with it, which was a great touch. And that's the whole trailer breakdown. I am so excited for the show. I really do think it's going to be an amazing adaptation. At least it looks that way from the trailer so far. Again, if you want to stay updated on the show and other Percy Jackson content, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay notified. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on Instagram to see more of my personal life, like my cute dog Loki, and some behind the scenes movie flame stuff. I also do similar content on TikTok and Twitter that I do here on this channel, so if you like what I do here, check them out. All the handles are right below me, and links are in the description. Over here are my wonderful patrons. If you want to be featured on the next video, plus get a few other perks, become a patron today. As always, if you liked the video, hit that like button and subscribe, and look out for more great movie flame videos on the way.